take a look at what's happening right there. The political, social and economic landscape of Mbarara. We shall be perusing through the city, their district. That is tomorrow morning. That is on Morning at NTV. Right about now, I'm heading into our next conversation of the day. Just last week on Tuesday, legislators presented the 2020-2021 budget framework paper to Parliament. Rather shockingly, the 2020 to 2021 budget was estimated at 39.6 trillion Uganda shillings, from which it would mean that the revenue allocations were down 2% from this financial year's budget of 40.5 trillion Uganda shillings. But should we be celebrating the drop, or we need worry more as the nation is going to borrow to finance its own elections? For more, we have Julius Mukunda, the Executive Director of the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, and he joins me right now in studio. Very good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
So the government is actually grappling, and civil society organizations have urged government to address the staffing gaps in local government. How did the creation of new administrative blocks exacerbate this problem?
Yes, I mean, and that's what we're talking from the beginning.
Indeed.
Is that creating an extra district does not mean that you are also having extra resources, but you're using what you already have, the envelope. So the envelope must be divided further. So if one district was being served by one finance officer, finance officer, one district engineer, one water officer, it means the two districts, you're creating more jobs for those people. But it does not mean that you're also actually increasing the services. We know now that almost that more than 60% of our budget is on wage and non-wage, just to service those guys. So little is coming in. Just the local government budget itself, more than 70% of it is wage and non-wage. The little money that we are sending, the 3 trillion we are sending to districts, more than 60% of it is just on wage and non-wage. So it tells you that we cannot keep on dividing these districts into small pieces, and that dividing districts is actually not increasing service delivery. It's just for politics, and we urge that government here needs to stop creation of these units, but also even these parastatals. In fact, we are actually, one of the things we're discussing, that we need to amalgamate and bring back these agencies that are duplicating services, so that at least you can save money.
Of course, you've been having pre-budget discussions since Tuesday all the way to Wednesday. And what were some of the major takeaways? 4
major ones really that came out. One, of course, is that we need a national dialogue. Not on politics,
economics.
On economic management. I think economic management has been hijacked. It's no longer, we are no longer being consulted properly in terms of where we should head to as a country. And I can tell you that the NDP3, for example, that has been done, it has been presented to Parliament, but it has not been validated by the people that we people want. Second thing is that I think what we are pushing for is, we have seen that we need to push more on agricultural productivity, which I think is very, 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 very important, because more than 70% of our country depend on agriculture. We have an advantage of producing agriculture. I have told the people, yes, we want to bring car assemblies, we want to assemble phones, we want to do so many things. We'll never beat the Japanese on that. No, we should never beat them. But we can beat the Japanese in growing beans. They cannot beat us.
We can beat them in growing beans.
We can beat them in growing beans. We can beat them in having gorillas. Those are two most critical things in this country. If we invest in, the returns are there for us. Forget about oil.
And Mr. Mukunda, yes, Mr. Mukunda, to achieve that, it would mean that our farmers would have to abandon subsistence farming and embark on commercialized agriculture. One factor about commercialized agriculture is irrigation. Now, imagine, out of 3,030,000 hectares of irrigable land in Uganda, only 3% of that land is actually irrigated in Uganda, and 1% under family households. So how are we going to make that major shift?
That's why we need to set our priorities right. For example,
how?
Why should we procure 1 million hoes?
Go ahead.
Because if we want to procure 1 million hoes, then forget about agriculture. We cannot modernize and improve agricultural productivity with a hoe. That can't happen. It can only happen if we have walking tractors, if we use donkeys, but also, like you said, we invest more in cheap irrigation methods that we can do, that we can afford. The third is what came out was debt management. Increasing, 3 issues came out of debt management. Number 1 is that it is increasing. Number 2, the increase is eating on the little money that we have. Now, interest rate payment is the second biggest share of our entire national budget, 11.6%, which means that less money we are taking. The third part is that what we call debt refinancing. It's a nice word that when we tell you, you don't get scared.
Yeah.
But ordinarily it means that I owe you money today, but I have negotiated that I pay tomorrow. So for government, it owes people money, but it has negotiated, we shall repay next year.
And remember the interest, we are going to be paying 11% of the budgeted for money to just service the interest of the loans. What are the ramifications of that on the economy?
The ramification is that, of course, is that the more indebted you are, then the more problems, the less resources you have to deal with, like the raw costs.
But Bahati says there is no need to panic right now. 36%, we are still not so bad.
Yes, you see, that's the good narrative. But I think we need to be realistic. That you see, that narrative is for the economists.
Yes.
But when you come inside the house, we need to deal with the reality that actually I think if we continue postponing paying this debt, it is going to reach the point where we are likely not to pay. The last point is local government financing. Local government financing, we've realized that they are getting only 3% of the entire national budget. And these are at the front line of service delivery. Everybody is saying these guys have no capacity, but they belong to government. Let us build their capacity so they can deliver their services. A whole trillion is being held at the central government for these local governments. A project is being implemented in 6 districts, but the money is at the central government. So that's why we're saying that for us to transform this country, we need to ensure that the local governments are capacitated and also funded properly.
Now, Mr. Mkunda, forest cover in Uganda remains low at 12% as of 2019 last year, down from 18% in 2014, below the NDP2 target of 20% restoration. Now, is this a recipe for disaster, and could it be the reason why we are seeing these changing patterns when it comes to climate change?
You see, the issue about climate change, it does not discriminate. It affects everybody, from the Chinese to the Americans, and even here to Uganda. But the better part of it is that if you do something about yourself, you can be protected against climate change.
So what are we doing wrong?
What we are doing wrong is that we have not systematically and specifically deal with encroachment. And encroachment, by the way, is not by the public. Government is leading with encroachment. Just to go on Rukaya Road and see that rice plantation taking place near Lake Victoria. 3 years down the road, we shall not have fish in Lake Victoria.
Wow.
That's going to happen because you just can't have a rice garden near a lake. Those guys are going to start using chemicals, and the chemicals will just be from the river. Look at Turbiji here. It was a wetland, and as a government, we decided and say, okay, do you know what? We need to construct something here. What examples are we telling to the rest of the public? So I think it's high time that government takes the lead in stopping encroachment first by itself, and then we go to ensure that we have we put protection measures and protect our environment, our wetlands, and also our forests. By actually, one of the things we can do is that we can promote. Because one of the things that we're doing is that charcoal is actually one of the biggest contributors to destruction of forests. So why don't we ensure that we provide better means of cooking food in this country? Why don't we say that?
Offer incentives on energy.
Offer incentives on energy. And let me tell you, there is no way out other than us dealing with it head on.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, because if we don't, the consequences are coming. Because look at these heavy rains that come at a very short period, and then all of a sudden you have the dry season. Before the dry season is ending, then the rainy season starts coming. So I feel our guys at Uganda Meteorological Authority must be having a challenge on predicting the environment.
It is a big challenge, Mr. Mukunda.
That is coming for us. The landslides. So one of the things actually what we have been telling government is that we need to ensure that our contingency fund is working properly. Because if we do not put aside fund for these emergencies, then I can tell you in terms of livestock, livelihoods are just going to be destroyed.
There's an impending locust invasion. I'm going to get into that. But then I would like to talk about do you think we need to create an environment protection agency or unit to undertake the protection and eviction of people who are actually encroaching on our wetlands? Like a police unit?
We do. You see, the thing is, let me tell you, in this country we are perfect in planning.
But implementation zero.
Implementation is our biggest enemy. The person who bewitched us in that particular area, I just don't know where he came from. We have an environmental protection police. We have National Environmental Management Authority. Why do we have Vera everywhere? It is supposed to be banned in this country. Why? The moment we ban, a few people just raise up business people with political power raise up their hands, and then we all back down. But we know that polythene bags are the biggest contributor to environmental damage in this country. And just a matter of a stroke of a pen, and they are banned, but they are still there. So it's not because we don't have the institution. We have the institution, but the institutions are extremely so weak that they cannot be able to deliver on their mandate. And as a preparation, we are therefore let down on terms of, if we put this institution and give them money to implement, why are they not doing their job? Heads must roll.
There's an impending locust invasion 200 kilometers from the Ugandan border. Do you think the Ugandan government is ready to contain this problem?
Whether we are ready, my friend, or not, the locusts are coming.
So they are coming. What should we do?
I told the
Because the Kenyans tried to acquire 5 aircraft to eliminate the locusts. It did not work. They spray every 3 hours on a daily basis. It's not working. So how prepared is our government?
We should have gone to Ethiopia, where they started from. We should have joined the Kenyans to fight the locusts. You see, when your neighbor is in trouble and you are just seated there, and the trouble is coming your way, definitely by the time you are going to ask for help, he's already weakened.
So we should replicate what
we should have gone to Kenya, we should have gone to Somalia, we should have gone to Ethiopia to fight the locusts there before they reach Uganda. They are coming, and all countries in East African region must actually join forces to fight the locusts. But I think on our part is that we are asking for 5 billion, just 5 billion, and it has taken us 2 weeks to get 5 billion. 2 weeks to get 5 billion. Let the locusts arrive and see how much they would cause, the damage they are going to cause. They are going to cause more than $1 trillion in terms of livelihood. So it's not because we don't have the capacity, but I think it's because of this too much bureaucracy on arguing on a very simple thing. We spend more than $3 trillion on paying salary for experts. Experts have come to us and told us, locusts are coming, we need to do something. And politicians are saying, sure, you first tell us how much does it cost. I mean, these are the experts you have paid. You pay on a monthly basis to advise you to on such a kind of matters, and here you are just seated, you are not making a decision. We are in trouble.
Well, the Ugandan government is doing something. They've set up a 2,200 strong UPDF lineup to combat that. Do you think it will be enough?
You see, with due respect to real, I think we are overstretching our military forces. One time they're the one in charge of the fish. Then they're in charge of the forest.
Operation Wealth Creation.
Then they're in charge of Operation Creation. Now they're in charge of locusts. This is sad, really. This is sad. Where is the Ministry of Agriculture, for heaven's sake?
Where is the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness?
Where is the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness? Okay, for disaster, they wait for disaster to come. But Ministry of Agriculture must have a disease, an insect surveillance system to ensure that these locusts are actually prevented from coming to this country. Or once they come, there is something that we can be doing. But I think for me, you rather fight the battle outside your country than within your country. So we rather actually go to Kenya and support Kenyans to fight the locusts. So that the few that will come are very few. But at least we must make sure that we go where the locusts are and fight them. But again, I think I urge our government to take this very seriously because look at what the foot and mouth disease is doing in this country. I mean, people are no longer having, livelihoods are being spoiled. So when you have locusts, I think it's just going to be very devastating.
And in your opinion, what should we do?
I think in my opinion is that we should be able to equip ourselves, provide enough resources to the Ministry of Agriculture. The 5 billion they are asking, let me tell you, in this country is the petty cash. They need even more than that. We need to provide the money as quickly as possible so that they can do the procurement. Because procurement in this country can also take many years to come. But we know we have the best experts in this country. We know we have the best people in this country who can really vouch for us in terms of fighting for this kind of threats.
As we talk about an impending locust invasion, on the other side, Bank of Uganda is asking for an additional 180 for recapitalization. Do you what will be the ramifications of that on the economy? And do you think they are warranted to get that money?
I wouldn't want even that to appear in the news that Bank of Uganda is asking for money and we're debating about it. You know, there are certain institutions in this country we should not be joking about.
Break them down. Bank of Uganda, UNEB.
Bank of Uganda, you have UNEB, you have Electoral Commission.
Indeed.
You know, the moment anybody feels that the Bank of Uganda is very weak, speculation takes place. And we know in this business, speculation can drown down the economy completely. So these are things that when Bank of Uganda comes, just pay immediately. We'll deal with them accountability later. And these are some of the strongest institutions we have. So when the Bank of Uganda comes and says that we need recapitalization, we know their job. Their job is to control the economy. The moment, just one day, they are unable to do that, and the inflation hits up 30%, you can see how much money we can lose in this country. So we need to do that as quickly as possible.
Another impending issue is the health budget, which was cut from 2.5 to 1.5. What would be the ramifications of that on the health industry?
Of course, it's very devastating, but I'm not very scared about the health budget, by the way, because you see the health budget, more than 50% of it is by development partners, and they have not committed funding. In fact, the biggest cut is from that particular perspective. I will be scared by March 1st to see actually if how donors have contributed. However, it is scaring that we depend on development partners.
Yes.
I think that's, for me, that could be my biggest scare, that what are we doing to reduce reliance from development partners and be able to fund some of these critical elements by ourselves, because the critical elements that are not being funded are in terms of medicines. I mean, for me, that is very sad that we cannot procure our own medicines. We are depending on development partners to provide us with medicines. So that's my biggest scare, that actually we are waiting for development partners to make a decision, and then that's when we can have a full budget for health. Currently, how it is scaring that if it remains like that, then we're in a very big problem.
Another scary issue, Mr. Mukunda, would be like who is actually accounting for the money we are getting from the donors, because this accounts for off-budget spending on the part of government. It's never reflected in the national budget. So who is accounting or holding government to account when it comes to money from donors?
And I think that one has distorted the budget process itself. Because monies that come outside the budget are difficult to account for, because you are accounting to the donor, you're not accounting to the government of Uganda. So I'm a promoter of basket funding. I'm a promoter of everybody should bring their money and put it in the basket. But everybody is scared that if we put money in the basket, I mean, there are so many leakages in the basket that actually money will end up being misused. But also I'm a promoter of let's close the leakages, because why is it that that donor money should get lost and we care a lot, but we don't care about our own resources that we have contributed, and in a very tough and difficult and painful way. So I'm a believer on that, and I'm a believer that we need to strengthen our internal mechanisms, our internal controls, so that we can attract money into basket funding. This will give a true picture of how much we have as a country. But I can tell you, so much money is being spent outside the budget, but supporting the same cause. So if that is, then it is very difficult for us even to measure progress. Probably we would be having even more money. Probably activities are being duplicated. You know stories whereby one borehole is being constructed by 10 donors.
Indeed.
So if we had a basket funding, then that borehole would only be funded by one donor or one source of income, and then you can have more boreholes across the country. So that's my belief, that basket funding is very important, and we need to progressively achieve that.
Mr. Mukunda, should this money be reflected in the national budget for better accountability?
It should be reflected in the budget for better accountability.
But what is stopping the government?
It doesn't know. It doesn't know who is bringing money into the government. It doesn't know. There are so many contracts being done that are outside government control. They are not. But they are from ministries. You find the Ministry of Education has a small project here for disability, a small project here for early childhood education, because a certain donor X from US or from UK is interested in that particular area only. And the government has no mechanism to track all that amount of money. But if there was a policy to say, for any money to be implemented in government by a donor for government projects, it must go through government systems. Then yes, we would capture that particular money. But currently, a few donors are doing it, but others are not doing it.
No, still on the issue of accountability, let's talk about the payouts from the Petroleum Fund. In 2018, 200 billion was removed from the fund to actually finance the 2018-2019 budget. Now, what do you make of that? Because it was in violation of the Public Finance Management Act.
I think the facts are, one is money was appropriated by Parliament. And it's correct, it's not illegal. The Public Finance Management Act stipulates very well that money from the Petroleum Fund must be appropriated by Parliament. So they did that.
So who is holding the Ministry of Finance to account?
It's ourselves. We're supposed to hold them accounting. The fact is, the Auditor General says that more money was taken out, which was not appropriated. So that's issue number one. But for me, is the issue of all the money actually right now is we have depleted the petroleum fund, isn't it?
Yes.
So, me, it's a blessing in disguise.
How?
And people are going to say, how? It's you know, it was 700 billion. If it was $1 trillion, this country would have a heart attack. That we have finished $1 trillion. So it is telling us that we have a weakness in our law enforcement, we have a weakness in our law, and as such, Parliament should not appropriate all the petroleum fund. Part of it must be in the reserve fund where we're supposed to put place. So I think now it's time to reform the law.
And finally, the issue of air pollution in Kampala, the second worst in the whole of Africa. We do not even have a regulation or a framework. Should we do that to combat the situation? Do we need a framework or regulation?
We need both.
No
For
monitoring
me,
system
we
on air
need an
quality?
enforcement. We need enforcement. Look at the noise pollution in this country. A bar is in a residential area and they are playing music. I have a bar next to my door. They play music from morning up to evening, even on weekends. That one itself, the lack of enforcement in this country. We have the law, it's there.
But the enforcement.
But the enforcement is missing. The laws are there, the policies are there. It is just the enforcement that is missing. I'm told the Kampala is now the second most polluted city in Africa. So I'm like in shock what is happening to our country. But enforcement, we need to ensure that's what I think about environmental protection. Where is the NEMA in all of this? Because the NEMA is the overall authority in terms of ensuring that our environment is protected, our environment is regulated.
Air pollution has to be combated because a healthy population always translates into better or economic growth in the country. Julius Mukunda, Executive Director of Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. Thank you for having made the time to speak to us.
Thank you so much. It was a nice being here.
It's been a pleasure. You're still watching Morning at NTV. Right about now, we're going to take a very short break. When I return, I'll be reading some of your messages for the people who are celebrating your birthdays on this particular day. Good morning.